Okay, let's wrap this up. And as a world-famous content creator and internet heartthrob, Bob, how did the release of Warcraft 3 Reforged affect your bottom line?
Affect it, peasant. It makes no difference. When the hype train was rolling months ago, I already had thumbnails at the ready. Insane reaction to the culling of Stratholme scene. WTF, top 10 Reforged cutscenes. Best custom map mods to FAP2.
So doesn't that hurt your fandom, knowing that you can't make content like that?
Who cares that Reforged fell short? It just means I changed my approach and my audience. Check it. Blizzard lied, more broken promises. Culling comparison, what we deserved versus what we've got. WTF, Reforged shows the current state of ActiBlizz. Being good at the game isn't about giving opinions, it's about reinforcing the most popular opinion at the moment and riding it until it changes. And then boom, I get all the dollars, all the bad bitches.
So what you're saying is hyper-sensationalizing the facts sells. Okay.
Wait, is this an interview or are you taking notes?
Well, that's all the time we have for today.
Bullshit. We haven't even gotten to the sex scandals yet. Fetid Devourer is a total freak, right?
Hey, it's Soul, and welcome back to another episode of Warcraft Weekly, the show that always finds its way to sink to new lows. We have another exciting week of news and drama for you, but first, let's give thanks to a handful of our patrons who ensure that this channel keeps running and who regularly threaten to pull their support if I don't give you more Bob.
Yay. More of me, thanks to...
Let's welcome our newest patrons, Nesfarian, Eric, and Jason. And if you want me to continue spreading the good word of WoW, check out the Patreon link below. And here's an attention check. Leave a comment and send some good vibes so I can stop being freaking sick.
Have you heard about the Carvana virus?
No, it's not called Carvana virus.
I heard it makes people into Blizzard chills. You should get checked.
Alrighty, top story of this week is that the race to defeat Mythic N'zoth is over, with Method as the winner once again. Oh, what?
One.
US Guild Complexity Limit crushed N'zoth on the 6th of February, taking home the world first in 8 years. For those of you who followed the race closely, Complexity Limit dominated the race in Ny'alotha, largely due in part to their one-day head start, let's not kid ourselves there. But one of the pitfalls of being first in a race where you don't know what's next meant that Complexity I'm just gonna call him Limit from now on, branding. Ugh. Limit was also in front of every quirk and issue with an encounter that no one else before them knew about. From experimenting by trying to bypass a phase, to thinking the fight ended at 25%, to planning the fight around a so-called secret phase that started at 25% that turned out to not even be a thing, to the threat of hotfixes, to actual hotfixes, to what both impresses and baffles me the most, open comms during the whole thing. Everything was shared, from the strats to the complaints over bugs to whatever the pit is.
The pit.
Whatever. Method took it to the next level with this expansion by first streaming the world first race and taking up win after win. And whatever you think of Method in this particular race, I've always griped over the fact that they've only shared their footage and have relied on commentators to break the silence. Limit has upped the ante though, with their candidness, sharing their pulls for all to see and hear and take notes on maybe. And they still came out first. I get that there's plenty of salt to be thrown around. I get that Method must have felt demoralized with their fans. Well, I'm sure their fans quickly fell back to the EU's many wins, while Limit and North American fans rubbed this win in everyone else's face. But let's stop right there. The guildmaster and raid leader of Limit, Max, said it best shortly after his win. I don't really know what I want to type here right now, but just know that if you're in Method's chat after this and trolling instead of cheering in ours, you're no fan of ours. They have everything to do with what we've become. Show respect. I'm impressed, and he's right. Healthy competition makes the players hungry, and this time around, Limit was hungrier than the rest. So there are a few takeaways from this race. One is that Limit and Method have played off of each other very well in this expansion, and this win from Limit sent a message that the competition isn't just here, it's gonna tear you up if you let your guard down. I think Method's gonna lick their wounds and learn from this, and that'll give us an even more intense show going into Shadowlands. 2, and this is more my opinion than anything, a bid production certainly gets the traffic, but in the end it's just one guild's Twitch stream versus another's. People seem more interested in open comm streams like Max as opposed to Complexity Limit's commentary, just like people were more interested in Method's commentary as opposed to their Guildmaster Sko's stream, which is absolutely silent, except for, of course, when people donate. So maybe the format will change to include viewers a little bit more, maybe a little bit less branding, and open comms in a kind of maybe an instant replay mode. At any rate, it's going to be interesting to see how these productions up the game. Third takeaway, if you're watching Max on Limit, he wasn't raiding at all. He was just playing coach off of someone else's stream, and that seemed to pay off. So I guess Max was right when he said earlier that 21 people was better than 20. What's more, this could be the start of a real thing in the competitive raid scene. And because of that, we've got to ask, is this going to be what gets Blizzard to finally implement a Spectator Mode, in this case for raiding? It's a feature that players have talked about for a while. If this becomes a thing in Shadowlands, how would it work at the player level? In my headcanon at least, I can see groups being able to bring in at most 2, maybe 3 spectators. So like, imagine being able to fly around a boss room and you're able to observe every angle of an encounter while it's happening. That'd be great for making raid guides or just some awesome footage. Maybe spectators can attach themselves to players in the raid and watch from their point of view instead to limit the balance, I guess. You might be thinking, no, that can't happen. I mean, there should only be 20 people in a Mythic raid and not 21, 22, 23, whatever. And maybe it disrupts the spirit of competition if you have people who aren't actually present in the raid be present. But streaming the competitive race live has changed everything. Hundreds of thousands of people are watching these teams, typing in, giving their own input from home. Max himself was observing from his teammates' Discord stream. So this is a box that has been open for a while, and there is no way to close it. Method changed the game at the start of this expansion. Complexity Limit changed the game again at the end of it. These teams made me a fan of watching the race, and I'm excited to see what's next. First reported by Blizzard Watch, a new book is coming on July 14th, which will provide some context between the events of patch 8.2.5 and the launch of Shadowlands. Shadows Rising is the name of the upcoming book written by Madeline Rue, who previously wrote The Shining Blade, the third book in the World of Warcraft Traveler series, so she's no stranger to the lore. An excerpt is available over on the Blizzard Watch site if you want to spoil yourself, there's going to be a link below, but a summary was provided to give an overview of what's going down. Illyria and Turalyon are tasked to hunt down Sylvanas themselves. We find out what Nathanos was sent off to do, to go forth with Sira Moonwarden, find and kill Bwonsamdi, the Loa of Death. The story also takes Zakan on his own new adventure to work with Princess Talanji and save the Loa. We kind of already know what happens in the end, but we still have a 5-month wait. In case you were wondering, the Before the Storm novel by Christy Golden was released on June 12th, with Battle for Azeroth on August 14th. Does that mean we're going to have a September release for Shadowlands? It's anyone's guess. Someone's going to say it, but I might as well be the one to do it, but whatever, could have this been patch 8.3.5? Like a few one-off scenarios with a feudal chase for Sylvanas, pandering to Zappy Boy fans, and well, basically another horde-centric story. I don't know, like maybe throw in account-wide essence.
Yes, give it to me.
And there you have it. Let's now move on to the more grumbly news, the stuff that Bob just loves. Blizzard put out a statement on the not-so-great release of Warcraft 3 Reforged, pointing out issues of concern, why they shifted away from remixing the campaign cutscenes, and announcing changes to come in a hey, it should have been here already kind of patch. JL and Brack himself talked about their missed expectations in a recent quarterly call, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And they also set up an easier method of obtaining a refund if you're not satisfied. This helped to expedite the cycle of dissatisfaction followed by compensation, but it didn't please critics who typically crave an emotional response like getting down on your knees and saying, "We're sorry for breaking our promises, we failed you," etc.
Because that would have turned that frown upside down, right? They said they were sorry, everybody. They said they'd do better. Let's buy all the games now.
It also didn't help too much when WoW had reported on what was missing, was reneged, or otherwise didn't make it into Reforged. It's a robust list of stuff that, personally, I never invested my energy into.
It's the principle, Soul, and the principle speaks for all gamers.
Right. But there's no denying the backlash either, with their Metacritic user score dipping very firmly into a 0.5 score. What does this communicate, though? When the number of users voting it down outnumber the amount of users who rated the 40 games above Reforged combined. It heightens the intensity of the criticism, but the message is still the same. And the best response for said message would be what? Tell the audience what is planned, acknowledge what they haven't done, and then ease up refunds for those who will most likely remain unsatisfied. I don't know what else you could ask for that the Reforged team could change overnight, except maybe change the font.
Really?
In somewhat related news, Activision Blizzard, the holding company for Blizzard Entertainment, did their quarterly report thing. Here are the highlights. World of Warcraft performed well for the remainder of the year thanks to Classic, giving a clear indication that Blizzard should release a different patch version of Classic WoW every year. Genius. On that note, Blackwing Lair for WoW Classic is coming next week on the 12th.
Do you think Method will get World first? Oh, come on, at least give me a chortle.
Also some big news, Shadowlands is expected to release during the second half of this year. Told you. It's one thing to give a placeholder date when thrown out a pre-order. It's another thing when it's said in a quarterly report to investory kind of people. Of course, anything can happen that could delay Shadowlands all the way to next year, including let's make the game better, or let's put in player housing, or f it, Tinker class. But given this report, as well as a report from Wild Chakra that a Shadowlands category has been added to Twitch, and we can safely speculate that Shadowlands will be coming this year. Before that, of course, the alpha, which I hope to get into as soon as possible. I've already started doing another brush on what we can expect to see in Shadowlands, and maybe next week I'll try to throw together a list of straight up demands to Blizzard on how I think they should conduct their testing. That's right, I'm going to be the armchair QA director. There's no shame lost when there's no shame left, right? So look forward to that act of futility in the coming days. Alright, let's sprint to the end with a couple of news bits. Big corruption changes are coming next week, most notably a 50% reduction to Echoing Void.
Thanks to the asshole tanks making horrific visions look easy.
Shut up. To compensate how this is going to greatly affect the race for World Past First, Mythic N'zoth will also be retuned to reflect the change. This week's maximum cloak rank shot up to 9, meaning players looking to reach this level will need to complete no less than 2 horrific visions with 2 or more chests dropped, not including taking out Thrall or Illyria. But just in case you missed it, we do have guides available to help you with this. They're kind of useful.
If you have Echoing the Void.
And to end a short but pretty hilarious saga, the Humming Black Dragon Scale trinket was hotfixed this week to no longer grant a slowfall effect when it activates its haste proc, which led to some hilarious and accidental deaths to those who didn't really want to get knocked back while levitating. It's now an on-use ability, and a depressing reminder to engineers who can't enchant their legendary cloak with a glider. That's pretty much it for the week, folks, and I would love to hear from you in the comments below with your questions, your concerns, and your feedback. Is the Shadowlands Alpha just around the corner? Will the race to Blackwing Lair be measured in hours or minutes? Will Bob ever stop sounding like me?
Or will Soul stop sounding, hey, what did you do?
Like this video if you enjoyed yourself today. Stay tuned by subscribing to the channel, hit that notification thingamajigger, and we'll see you next week. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.